come back. Welcome back, John. And the first thought I had and you had when we decided we're back today was like, could have got another 2 weeks.
It crossed my mind today. It's like, do we really got to do this? And our partner said we did, so we're here.
Yeah, that worked out well. That's all right. It's good to be back. For those of us who missed it, a 2-week hiatus. For those of you who didn't miss it, well, you didn't miss it then. But it's good to be back and refreshed. You're looking good. You're looking tan.
Good to be heard. Good to be heard.
And seen. We're on YouTube. Don't forget about that. The YouTube stream is up and rolling. The podcast description for you YouTubers is down below. For you podcast listeners, we actually had some stuff that went out on YouTube over the course of the last couple of weeks in our absence. But
those pop at all? Honestly, I didn't even check.
I hadn't checked in about a week. I saw one or two did okay, but I haven't gone back to check. So yeah.
It really is it's a slow time, but it was pretty cool last 24 hours we'd probably get into. A lot of shit went on out of nowhere. But God, I mean, the late month of, that early July 4th time, like there is nothing happening.
For everybody hanging out on the YouTube, hit the like button on that. We already have a big DraftKings. I mean, this is perfect, right? Like the British, or the Open, is this week in Sandwich, UK. That's the name of the area. That's the name of the town, Duke of Earl. But the British is back, John, and we've got a DraftKings game for it. You want to get in, so get in with us right now. Plus, basketball, there's still some big games left. As we record this on a Sunday night, we're a few minutes away from Game 3 of the NBA Finals. You can play DraftKings there, offering all players at DraftKings a shot at up to $5,000 in total prizes with their free-to-play pools. That's $5,000 in total prizes up for grabs each game, and the best part is free to play.
I just actually reserved my spot. I had $1 in my DraftKings account. As you were talking, I put $25 back in there. Now I'm in the game. Get in our game. We'll tweet it out. We'll Instagram it out. It'll be out. Links in the YouTubes and stuff. Like I said, you download the app. Promo code HAM. You can play basketball, NBA stuff. Obviously, you can play baseball. Even though this week, is the All-Star break a week? It's definitely 3 or 4 days. But who even knows? Download the DraftKings app. Get in on all the action before the season ends. Download the top-rated DraftKings app now. Use the promo code HAM when you sign up for free. Shot at $5,000 in total prizes during the NBA Finals. Head to DraftKings Pools page to get your shot at huge cash prizes. That's promo code HAM for a limited time. Only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for full details.
Yeah. No, baseball's coming back. I mean, you got the All-Star game on Tuesday, and then what is baseball usually comes back on Thursday. There's a game on Thursday, and then everybody else plays on Friday. So that's your weekend.
LeBron would not let that happen. They would have a 2-week hiatus, especially in baseball when you play every day. He would have no part. Come back on Thursday or Friday? No, sirree. They wouldn't be coming back. I'd say July 25th would be the earliest.
And his team would never play in that first game back. It'd be like
no chance.
Sunday.
Zero. It'd be like a Monday night.
Shohei in the Derby. Shohei, by the way,
showing in Japan, first time 25 years.
Well, that's incredible. We got let me add Shohei to the list of other things stuff that we got to catch up on. But yeah, our DraftKings game is up. Big game. Go get it. And it's going to be a good time. And then we'll also have some picks this week at mybookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1. mybookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1, whether it's the NBA, obviously baseball, but NBA Finals, and of course, our golf picks this week. I'm having some fun looking at just some of the guys out there, some of the numbers out there right now.
I was talking to my mom today. She had the dogs. My brother is actually her neighbor now, and sometimes drops his dog over there, so it has her dog, his dog, and she's watching the golf. She's like, John Rahm looks like he's gotten skinnier. I'm like, you might be the only person thinking that. But here's what I will say about John Rahm. He's the favorite right now, and to me, he should be the heavy favorite. And I do feel like, remember last year, the Masters time, the FedEx playoffs, Dustin Johnson was heavy favorites in all these tournaments, and it felt like, I don't know if I'd bet against this guy right now. I don't know if I'd bet against John Rahm. He almost won the Scottish Open. He could have won Memorial, but Corona. Then he comes back, he wins the U.S. Open as the favorite. And it just feels he's a Spaniard. He's a Euro. So he's like he grew up in just tough conditions. I I'm not into betting like single digit favorites. It's pretty nuts in a golf tournament because you're just betting one guy against, whatever, 130 guys. I don't think it's that crazy to put if you wanted to put $100 or something on him. Like I'd feel pretty good about my chances of him being in the mix. He feels a lock to be in the mix come the weekend.
And again, this is so unpredictable, right? We were talking about it before we started the show. Darren Clark won the last time the British was at this event 10 years ago.
You see the other two guys that finished second? I just Wikipedia'd it.
No.
It was Phil and DJ, a young DJ, because it was 2011.
But right now, John, DJ doesn't feel. Was it DJ standing next to Rory when the guy came out and took Rory's club?
It was Rom. It was Rom.
That was Rom?
It was Rom, yeah. Because they were playing in the Scottish show. Yeah, it was DJ's on the lake.
All right, yeah. Well, I didn't think DJ would be there, but Rory, roller coaster, nobody else feels dialed in right now. Brooks, Jordan, Spieth, all these other guys. I'm listing the other players with the shortest odds behind Rahm to win the Open. So, yeah, I'm with you.
I don't think it's that crazy. A guy goes it'd be a pretty big moment. He didn't have a major and then he wins 2 back-to-back, 2 hard ones. Be pretty cool. And it feels like he's in position to kind of do it.
Could Victor is another guy I've been thinking about. Hovland.
When's the last time you see Victor Hovland? So he got sand in his eye.
Yeah, hopefully he's recovered. It's the windy conditions, John, out there. It's a lot of sand flying around. Although Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, rain scheduled in the UK or predicted in the UK. Maybe that keeps the dust levels down. I don't know. What if he rolled out wearing clear Oakleys?
That'd be pretty funny. On the Rory video that went viral, because I had I'm on a text chain with my brother and his 2 good buddies, and my buddies too, the Rabers, Scotty and Tyler. And Scotty caddied for his brother Tyler when he qualified for the U.S. Open 4 or 5 years ago, and he's made the Barracuda. It's the PGA tournament that's in the Safeway Open, like that level PGA tournament. He's always been his caddy. He thought that Rory's caddy. He's like that's unacceptable. You cannot. You have to at least go after him. And I pushed back. I said, that guy has a weapon. What do you? The only way Rory's caddy go after him if he also pulled out a club, because you're at a disadvantage, right? What are you going to do? Hey, give me the club back. What if he swings the club at you? I don't think the player in that situation, Rory's expecting you to go like Navy SEAL on the guy.
First of all, I bet there's a few factors, right? In a litigious culture, yeah, I don't know if everyone's suing people in Ireland, but I would imagine if you're a caddy, you've been told don't try to tackle anybody, don't try to because maybe Rory's the one financially responsible. If you tackle the guy and break his leg and he sues you and now you're in trouble, right? The same reason. So that'd be the first thing.
Good point.
The second thing, it's easy to say all of that after you've watched the video play out and it turns out the guy's hand-eye coordination was probably severely compromised, right? After you watch the video and you see the guy's drunk and he's not running from anyone, it's easy to say you should have gone after that guy. But in the moment when the guy walks out there, you don't know what his state is, right? You don't know if he's clear. The way security escorted him off, he gave 0 resistance. So yeah, you could have, in hindsight, you could have tackled him. He wouldn't have fought you, probably.
I do think you're more likely in America to get the guy to run around and try to high five him. In Europe, honestly, they make me a little more on edge. Guy grabbed a club. Was he trying to hit his own ball?
Didn't want to give the club.
Remember the dude at the U.S. Open who ran out to the middle of the fairway with his own club? Yeah. He was just trying to hit some balls, get a funny viral video for TikTok. This guy, honestly, dark. I was a little on edge.
A little dark.
You see the way Rory and Rahm just stared at him what the fuck is going on? Security! And the one thing you realize in golf, this ain't the NBA or the NFL. It's just a rope, right? It's not that hard to get around. It's kind of crazy. And we saw a couple things happen in the NBA that in football, it's basically impossible. One, you'd have to jump onto the field, and then you're at a numbers disadvantage. In golf, it might happen something weird in the next decade, right? As the sport gets a little more
hit you in
casual, alcohol's flowing. Yeah,
it's just not a lot of space for some. Now, did you see? I was watching when Timberlake was out there throwing hats. 2 huge, police officers walking with him, probably off duty, but wearing their uniforms, hired by him.
Well, to me, that tournament treats it more like an NBA or an NFL game. I dare you to fuck with one of these guys. I dare you.
Yeah, they treat it like it's a nightclub.
I don't think Charles acts like that. I think Timberlake does.
Charles, by the way, I meant this. One of the great truly, I'm not even being sarcastic, the fact that that guy did not quit on his swing and plays golf in the public eye and rebuilt his swing and got rid of the yips is I was so happy for him watching it, because every time he swings, you have this feeling like, is it going to happen here? Shout out Charles Barkley, John, for one of the great accomplishments in recent sports history, overcoming the yips.
I was at an airport when the match was going on, but it got tweeted into my timeline that, he's sitting there. He's on site, right? Charles was there in Montana. Is that correct?
Charles
with Brian
there.
Anderson.
Yeah.
And they must have gone out the night before, like the TNT guys. And he was like, Brian Anderson was like, there's a lot of animals, wildlife around here, grizzly bears. And Charles was like, I know, I saw some cougars last night. He's like, Linda, Julie, and Megan. It's like, oh my. There is never, ever going to be, like, they say Draymond's the next Charles. Draymond's personality is a little more contentious, a little angrier. Like, Charles is truly, he makes you laugh and smile. Like, there is something, like, that's not, you can't replace that. I'm not saying Draymond won't be good at it one day or whoever, but he's a true one of a kind. He's like a John Madden. That's not coming again.
It's harder, right? I know a guy who used to work for the Suns on their TV crew back when Charles played there, and he would always say, like, you'd go out to the bar after the game, Charles would always buy for everybody. The world has changed, right, for very famous people, celebrity athletes. You're less likely to just roll into a bar, hang out with a bunch of people. Maybe you know some of the people, maybe you don't, and then you leave whatever dive bar you were hanging out at. It's just...
Well, I was texting with John Dickinson today, and about Vinny Del Negro, who won the American Century, and he played for the Kings. And Dickinson told me his dad sold Vinny Del Negro a car. Must have been like the early 90s when he played for the Kings. He said, you know what's crazy? I think his dad, my mom almost bought a car from Dickinson's dad like 5 years ago. He works at a Lexus dealership. I don't think an NBA player like De'Aaron Fox or Buddy Hield, even Sacramento, kind of a smaller town relative to the NBA, if they needed a new Lexus, a new Range Rover, a new Mercedes, do you think they're going into the dealership in 2021? Because I think zero chance. Someone is doing that for them.
I do think there's probably something fun about rolling into, like, if it's a high-end dealership, you let them know you're coming.
I'm talking in Sacramento. Do you think he's rolling in the Lexus dealership like Vinny Del Negro did?
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he rolls into where do you get a luxury car? Like not a luxury car. Like, where do you get a Ferrari? Do they have a dealership?
Yeah, no, I'm not talking Ferrari. I'm just talking like, a Mercedes SUV or something.
It wouldn't shock me if they roll into the Mercedes truck spot and just like, I want that one. But so much of it is customized that, like, I was at the Giants game the other day. I have to assume, I have no inside knowledge. I have to assume it's Johnny Cueto's car because it just felt like it. Ben's truck in like lime green. To your point, you can't even get that at the dealership.
Now, right? In fairness, you could do all that probably online, right? Create it all.
That's true. You don't even have to go there. Most average person doesn't go to the dealership. They order a car, gets delivered to them.
But my take is Charles's generation, and I do think that's why, like, Michael Jordan, all these people have stories about being around them. They're just more out and about. Like, if they needed to get a sandwich, they went and got a sandwich, right? Michael, maybe not, but like everyone else. Now, like, they just have and this speaks for, like, just Tom Brady, any higher level guy.
Do you? You just get it delivered.
Yeah, but I mean, if I have, like, tonight when I go to get dinner, sometimes you're like, I don't want to pay the extra $7 for 17 fees. I don't even know what's going for. And then I have to tip on top of that.
Have to tip? Anti-blue collar worker.
Well, but it's like, are the fees going toward the tip? That's where I'm confused.
No, the fees. Who was it? DoorDash, one of them has, like, the fees help us run our business. Like, just, okay. Well, I'm glad I can help you run your business. All right. I don't think we finished just making the point that mybookie.ag promo code ham1. They'll match that first deposit 50% up to $1,000. You can also decline the bonus should you so choose. This isn't part of the ad anymore, but we just need to say it. And
ham one, mybookie.ag, ham1. Get your gamble on. Golf gamble. We'll have some picks.
We'll have some picks this week. We've already revealed a couple of them, but we'll have some picks this week. On the YouTube chat, Christopher, it's too big. Come on, let me make this. How do I? Christopher says, welcome back, fellas. How about the Shanahan McVay podcast? After listening to it, I can see Jimmy being released or traded before week 1 and riding with Trey from day one. This reminds me we have some mailbag stuff to get to. We're going to talk a lot about the the Flying Coach podcast because it was good stuff.
I've gotten a lot of DMs and people even that meet someone and they find out, you do stuff with the 49ers. Ask a lot of Trey Lance questions. And I just think it's the power of when you draft a guy really high, like a lot of it. What are the chances he starts week 1? Middlecoff, have you seen this guy's grind this offseason? Like, no, not really. Like what I saw him at Carson Wentz's softball game. Like, what do you mean? I guess he's posted videos. Mm-hmm. Not super locked into like dude taking snaps with his personal coach. Like, you see him grinding, you see him working. Like, yeah, I mean, most guys, like, this isn't 1987. They don't come back fat like they do train.
I ran into my buddy Brad Sanfilippo, the head baseball coach at San Jose State and a listener at the Giants game on Monday. And he's like, he had his daughter with him. He's like, Francie, tell Guy what the shirt I just got you. You got her a Trey Lance jersey. I saw another guy there with his two little girls. Little girls run around in a George Kittle jersey.
Betting on the future.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, so, it is. You're just praying to God. Like the one thing when you watch the American Century, I mean, 2 enormous stars, and they show them nonstop, even though they're terrible at golf. Are Kelsey and Mahomes? They played together the entire time. They're awful. Kelsey's terrible, and they are just stars, Guy.
Are there not extra long clubs for some of these guys? Some of them look like they're using my clubs.
Yeah, I just don't even think some of these guys even care. I mean, Kelsey's just going there to drink and hang.
Kelsey's clubs looked way too small for him.
I'm pretty sure they just did not change that threesome the entire weekend. It was Mahomes, Timberlake, Kelsey. That was their threesome all weekend. They played backwards hats, slamming beers, throwing footballs. It's just that was the group that was fun.
All right, let's dive into some stuff here. A lot to get to. And let's start with the Matthew Stafford. We didn't talk about this ahead of time. Do you want to go 3, 2, 1? I say we just continue on as we're going, and then we can add in ads later on the videos, right? Okay. So let's talk about Matthew Stafford, John, because that was, I think, probably the first big headline that came out of the Shanahan interview with Sean McVay and Peter Schrager on Flying Coach. And a couple of things here I think we found out as a little more background on stuff you and I have talked a lot about. Something that a lot of different people have had a lot of opinions on. I think you and I believed that he was interested in Matthew Stafford. He was interested in Deshaun Watson. Ultimately, they drafted Trey Lance, and that's a conversation for in a few minutes. But he watched him and loved him. Like Kyle Shanahan, and one thing I wondered listening is maybe his plan was to add a quarterback one way or the other. But clearly what happens in the division, what the Rams do, what the Seahawks do, what the Cardinals do, it's part of the Niners' thinking, and I wonder if adding Stafford ratcheted up the urgency for him to move up and draft Trey Lance also because he loved him. Clearly, he really likes him.
Well, one thing that stood out to me, what he told Sean, and obviously Sean loved him too, they got him, is that when your guy's not in your division and you don't play them very often, and just the team he was on, even when Kyle was in Atlanta, like how many times has he really sat down and watched Matt Stafford? I think it's fair to say not often.
Right.
And I'm lucky enough, I have a buddy that works for the Bears, separate from Matt Nagy, just as a scout. And he's been telling me he's been there for 5 or 6 years, like how good Stafford is. And I know Rodgers has always backed up Matt Stafford because they're just around him, right? I think they value his play. You don't just play him twice a year, but you see him on all the cross tape, right? If you ask Kyle about some random guy in the Cardinals, some random guys on the Seahawks, he's going to have a very, very good feel for them. No different than John Gruden or Andy Reid would someone in the AFC West. Stafford is a little out of sight, out of mind.
For sure. I mean, John, the other thing I'd add divisionally, you constantly 2 weeks from now, is Stafford healthy? You want to know what guys, even if they're 3 weeks away, maybe you're not watching the tape on him yet, but the status of him and his teammates is constantly something you're aware of too.
But don't you think this also plays a factor? When you're on a team that sucks, I don't get to watch you in many standalone games, right? Like, I don't watch you on Sunday Night Football when I'm already at home.
Off.
Or Monday in my office. You're not playing on Monday night. You play I think the Lions typically play a one Monday Night Football game. It's usually early in the season. So I just view this guy as really talented, but he might be a loser. And the way Kyle was like, I broke him down. I was like, God damn, he's better than I thought. That to me was one of the things that really stood out about how much Kyle liked him. But I do think it was complicated because it was going to be very expensive to trade for the player, and he makes a lot of money, and his contract does not run forever. Like, you probably have to extend him after a year. Like, it's a very, very expensive addition, where when you trade for a rookie, he's actually relatively cheap. Now, you had to give up the 2 first-round picks, but you'd have to do that for Stafford anyway. But I'm getting an asset that's cheap. I'm getting Matt Stafford that immediately costs $30+ million. And if he plays well, which Shanahan and definitely McVay were planning on him doing once they got their hands on him, do you think he's going to get cheaper? Right? What I mean, honestly, a Matt Stafford extent. Let's say Matt Stafford has an unreal year this year. He's like a fringe MVP guy. The Rams are going to extend him after the season. Is it like 3 years, $120 million? And guarantee like $100 million. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. The other factor is Brad Holmes is on the Lions now.
They had to give up their quarterback.
He might have liked Jared Goff more than he likes Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, even if all offers were equal. And by the way, all offers aren't equal because the Niners' first-round pick is better than the Rams' first-round pick.
Well, they didn't have one.
I guess it was 2022 and 23, right? So that didn't matter this year.
Well, so the Niners are going, we're giving you pick 12, right, which is a lot, and we're giving you Jimmy Garoppolo, and we have to give you another one where they go, we'll give you 2 1s in the future and give you Jared Goff. And in fairness to Brad Holmes, how could I depend on Jimmy? If I'm the Lions, Jimmy being around.
I know, but the Niners' picks would have been, at least you would have gotten this year's pick, right? But in theory.
And part of it, too, was like they gave those guys 6 years deals. They're cool with kind of tanking, being shitty.
Yeah, if you don't love any of these quarterbacks, you're acquiring a quarterback because you don't want to draft a quarterback because you want to draft Penei Sewell.
I just think it was double expensive for Stafford. Now, with Matt Stafford, right? When I was in Arizona, I looked at houses. And some of the houses, the more expensive ones that had really nice shit on them, cost $200,000 more than the fixer-uppers. But the fixer-uppers, you might be able to fix it up for cheaper than it would be to get it to the point where the house is $200,000 more. So you actually might end up saving money, and your price to acquire the guy is cheaper, right? Because Trey Lance, your first couple years, you're paying him like $5-6 million. Stafford, you're immediately paying him a lot of money, and you have to give all your first-round picks. So he has to be really good. Like with Trey Lance, it's not going to be the case here, but there is like an ease into it period in theory, right? With Matt Stafford, there is hit the ground running, win right away, right? I'm not saying that's not with the Niners, but like everything the Rams have done, Jalen, Aaron Donald, you get Matt Stafford, like their goal, if you walk into the room, is legitimately anything less than I would say being in the NFC Championship game for them would be a massive disappointment. Is that fair? Like if the Niners make the playoffs this year, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying once you lose in the wild card round, that doesn't suck, but it's like they haven't been winning much beside the 1 year. Where the Rams, they've been winning. They were in the second round this year with Goff. Now they get Matt. Like all of their chips are in the middle of the table. Where the Niners they have a lot of chips in the middle of the table, but they do have a little wiggle room. They still got chips on the side, right? And that part of that is just the rookie contract.
Right. Yeah, the time that you get to develop a quarterback. And part of that's going to depend on what if he does play, how quickly does he play, what does he look like when he plays? Does he look good? And you go, okay, if he looks good, if he doesn't look good and pressure's on and Jimmy's hurt, and like there are ways that the pressure can get high real quickly, even though you're going to naturally have some time, the Rams are not going to naturally have any time because they don't have any time. They're trading all the picks.
I think there's more pressure with Jimmy in the game than with Trey. I think people are open-minded to like let this guy kind of let's just see what he's got. With Jimmy, it's like I think the Niners are complicated. There's no way around it. It's a complicated situation.
The pressure with Trey Lance comes if he's played a sustained amount of time and doesn't look good. Yeah, that's where the pressure comes. But I think you go back to Kyle doesn't. One thing you and I have talked about a lot when it relates to Shanahan, even though they do some things that require patience, he doesn't seem like he's not a naturally patient guy. Like when we heard him talk about the jobs before he took the Niner job, his plan was I'm only going to take a job with a top 5 quarterback because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to mess around, and B, he just knows if you don't have a top 5. What he said was if you have a top 5 quarterback, that guy can get you out of anything. So it's like
it's like my family. When are you gonna settle down, John? Supermodel who can cook and clean, who makes some good money. I'm like what? That's not it. That's I know he said that, but that's pretty unrealistic, right?
Well, clearly, I mean, he ended up taking a job that didn't have a top 5 quarterback, right?
They didn't have a quarterback.
Didn't have a quarterback. Didn't have a defense. Didn't have an offense. Was as bad as it could get. Had nothing but instability, but they gave him a 6-year contract. So it's like, well, I can a 6. They said they're going to do all the stuff I wanted to do. They're going to let me hire like 4 front office assistant GMs and John Lynch. Sweet. But, I now look, if he had still been an assistant coach, I mean, jobs do come open. We'll see. Does the Bengals job come open? Now, is Joe Burrow a top 5 quarterback when that job comes open? No. Is Justin Herbert a top 5 quarterback? No, but I bet he would fit the bill of what Kyle was talking about, right? Does the Herbert job come open? That's
not a great job historically, though, right? The owner's questionable.
No, it's but again, it's just how good's Kyler going to be if the Cardinals job comes open? Obviously, the Texans job came open before stuff got weird with Deshaun, so it does happen. I mean, the Packers job came open after McCarthy with Rodgers.
Right? My pushback on Kyle, and he would know more about this than me. Obviously, he's an NFL head coach and interviewed for these jobs. I think just because it's very unrealistic for Aaron Rodgers is kind of an outlier situation, right? Like Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, like these jobs with these young, sweet quarterbacks aren't going to become available. Maybe Pete Carroll retires or something in a couple years, but even that would be a unique job. I think I would pick the organization. But pushback would be like, well, the Steelers job doesn't come open, right? Yeah. Belichick's been there for 25 years.
It is what he did, though, to your point.
But he picked the organization kind of betting that they were going to be a lot better than they were in their past.
Yeah. Well, he picked them. They gave him everything he wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
because even McVay was like, no one was offering me this sweet shit. I just had to take the job that I got offered.
The dynamic with the Stafford thing is weird, though, because he clearly was interested. But I think one thing, there were conversations the Rams and Lions were having, just one of my kind of the way you read between the lines. The fact that Brad Holmes had just come from the Rams, and I think you initially said like this is kind of an inside job, right? Kyle was not given a chance. Clearly, the Niners were not given a chance to match. Somebody was telling him, maybe it was an agent or something, you better call right now, like it's happening now. But there was no like, all right, we got the deal from the Rams. Let's call Shanahan to Lynch and see if they'll top it.
Well, there was none of that I do think that Jared Goff offers you more just stability when money doesn't matter, right? Just to give me a couple years to figure out my quarterback situation and just let him do whatever.
Yeah.
More than Jimmy at any moment could just get injured, and then you're like, well, we're playing with the C.J. Beathard of the Lions, and we're just extra terrible.
Yeah. At
least Jared, like, maybe our coach is dynamic and we can be competitive, right? When I say competitive, just close to 500, right? It gives you some more options. To me, Jimmy's. I wonder if the market for Jimmy was pretty terrible because he makes a lot of money and he's always hurt. It's not like if he was making $5-6 million, I think a lot of people would have been interested. He makes 20. That's a pretty big cap hit.
And I don't think the Niners were particularly willing to, like, they weren't going to compromise on value. Now, maybe they would have gone for a second-round pick, right? I mean, you'd have to take that, we thought. But clearly they were not going to just trade him, which is what other teams would want. It's like, yeah, here's maybe an additional fourth.
I heard Mike Lombardi talk about this, and he's pretty clearly tied in with the Patriots. It sounds like they were never, ever thinking anything over like a fourth-round pick. Because just based on the value, like your guy's been hurt. And say what you want about Belichick, he does not operate out of desperation.
No, it doesn't make sense if you're not getting value in that case.
Yeah.
What would that mean, though, is the question, right? Does it mean it's a fifth, and if he starts 14 games, it's a fourth? I mean, maybe that's not the kind of deal. The Niners are going, he's our starting quarterback right now. We have Trey, but we don't really know. So I understand it.
Well, if you've been watching him on Instagram, he's ready to roll.
That's what somebody made a comment on YouTube. That's like, all he does is work out with Debo, Ayuk, Sanu, Kittle. Where's Jimmy's videos?
That's a lot of hype.
Just get to know each other. That's important. The other thing we talked a lot about, and let me read you this Kyle Shanahan quote from the podcast. Talking about Mac Jones. The context of it, if you didn't hear it, was they were talking about all the other rumors that were out there. And Schrager said, hey, I thought it was Mac Jones, tennis family. And Kyle said, the reason we moved up was because I think either one of them was a good decision. Either one of those players would have been a great pick, in my opinion. And the third guy with Justin, he would have been a great pick too. End quote. And if you want to hear that was around the 50 minute mark of that podcast, if you want to hear the full context of it. But, that to me speaks to what I've always maintained, which is I think Mac Jones was ahead of Justin Fields. I've thought that. I've said that since the draft. You and I both, in the moment of truth, right before the draft, said they're taking Trey Lance. That was our prediction. But I've believed that Mac Jones was real. Now, was he ever ahead of Trey Lance? I don't know. I'm not saying that, but I do think he was actually truly considered, and I do think at the end, Mac Jones was ahead of Fields on the Niners draft board. And I think Kyle kind of gave it away when he called Justin the third guy.
I don't even think it's debatable at this point, and I disagree with their evaluation. Now, I look at it from a big picture scouting traits. Coaches do not, because Sean didn't it feel like Sean kind of doubled down on with Kyle? Like people like were shitting, like it pissed Sean off. Like everyone's shitting on this kid. Like I think he's good. I love it when a coach does this too. You know, we're not in the quarterback. We're in the quarterback market. And then he rattles off all his traits. Like, Sean, you're a football junkie. I know you watched 3 or 4 of his games because you were hearing the hype. If you're him,
he was watching receivers and right, he was watching receivers too.
But think about this: if you're him and you start thinking like they might take Mac Jones, wouldn't you just, if you're already watching those guys, kind of focus on him? Like you might be playing this guy for the next 4 or 5 years.
Right.
I don't even think it would be that crazy. And the way Sean talked, like I think he's good. You know why? Coaches think he's good. Because you watch him, he's incredible at running the offense. My pushback is like he doesn't have the physical traits, guys. When he's getting chased by Aaron Donald and DeForest Buckner, he's going to get killed. He doesn't have a great arm, but all those guys see is like, you see his base, see his anticipation. It's about playing the quarterback. And they both were like on the same page on that. I would imagine if we went through a lot of coaches in the NFL, I'm not even talking Sean or Kyle, which clearly would have been high on him. And I think it's fair to say that everyone in that scheme probably liked Mac Jones. But I bet a lot of quarterback coaches and offensive coordinators were high on Mac Jones. Just like I think a lot of the scouting community, think about this guy. The Denver Broncos now are run by a GM. Now, they were with Elway too, but like a true personnel guy, the dude, General Patton. The Seattle Seahawks, or not Seattle Seahawks guy now runs the Panthers. And both those guys, when they needed I guess they already had Sam Darnold, but they would have known that like Justin Fields, it was kind of clear that he might fall a little bit in the draft. I would say by about middle of free agency, it was like, God, people are down on Justin Fields. By the time the Orlovsky stuff came out, some people were just kind of down on him. You know, I don't quite understand it. He ended up going before Mac Jones, but they both kind of went. One guy went 12th, the other guy went 15th. Belichick didn't take him. Like, I think a lot of GMs were probably in the ear of their owner. Like, this is, you don't take Kirk Cousins in the top 15. Even if you think he's going to be Kirk Cousins, coaches don't care. Like, and that's where I'm glad whether Kyle decided on it, his personnel people talked him into it, however they came to the conclusion of like, if you're going to invest your entire life savings as you did with this trade, you have to swing for the fences here.
And at the end of the day, he might have liked him. He might have just liked him more, right? When he starts talking about, I need a top 5 quarterback.
Trey,
he might have said, because go back to the quote, you need a top 5 quarterback because that guy can bail you out of anything. Maybe that was the deciding factor. This guy has the traits to be a top 5 quarterback.
I agree, but I think it's fair to say, because when you listen to him talk about Mac, and even I think Sean knows. All these guys, it's like incestual. They're all buddies. Like how do all these guys not know exactly what the other guy thinks? How does Mike McDaniel? I recommend, or not Mike LaFleur. The Jets did an awesome little YouTube series with a lot of LaFleur, who's pretty impressive. But like LaFleur's, the two brothers are like best friends with the McVays, or best friends with the Salas, who all work for the Shanahans, who are. It's like they all know what everyone's thinking. I do not believe that they didn't know, or at least have a very, very good feel. And I think Kyle would have been, after hearing him talk, like, I think he wanted Trey Lance. Obviously, they took him, but he thinks he could have won with Mac Jones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and you can tell it pisses him off. When people talk about it, like, and you've always said this from the jump. And my pushback on this is pretty simple. If you're taking your life savings to invest in something, because your take was, we can't act like one player's floor, like no one's floor. We see it time and time again in the draft, right?
There's no sure thing.
No. It's like, okay, you don't invest in that sweet startup, invest in just some basic business. Well, what if something happens and that thing goes bankrupt? Things change all the time. Solomon Thomas, worst case, he's going to be a solid rotational guy. By about year 2, you're like, this is a great example.
That's a great example.
But coaches don't think like that guy, because they just see the plays and they see it work.
Yep.
But then
at minimum, I'll be able to trust this guy.
But then what happens is they get really mad by about year 2 when it's not working. Right.
Right.
And I think Kyle would have learned that. And I think the other thing that stood out to me about Kyle, not that you didn't know this, not you, but just in general.
Big arm.
He should be. He's cocky. Like he believes in his ability.
As a quarterback, as a Pop Warner quarterback.
Well, that too, but I'm just saying, like, he should. And listen, I've been around Pat Hill, Andy Reid, those guys, maybe a little humble. They're cocky inside. It's a good quality. I think with coaches, quarterbacks, star NBA players, star golfer, like, you better fucking believe in yourself. But I think, did that come out to you when you heard him talk? Like, he believes in his ability to do this shit.
Yeah, I think part of when you say, just think about the way he was talking about the jobs, right? Whether you buy or not, he would have waited for a top 5 quarterback.
And that's 4 years ago, guy.
Right. He had 4 interviews.
Before
John,
he took a team to Super Bowl.
He thought about canceling the Niners interview, he claimed. I'm too tired. Canceling an NFL head coach job interview? Yeah, I'm Kyle Shanahan. Somebody else will offer me another job. Yeah, I mean, I thought the way he talked about the Super Bowl, yes, and I think you hear it in McVay. You hear how
and I'm not anti the cockiness. Like,
no.
You want your coach to have some swag.
I think the way he talks, in addition to the way when you watch him every day, I think it's part of the reason a lot of people, like me, I think like you, even though we talk about he needs to produce wins and losses, like, right? But I think it's part of where the confidence in him comes from, is you see the confidence that he has in himself. And I'm sure that comes from a variety of things, one of which being around his dad, being around the game, understanding who's good, understanding who's bad, having been in 2 Super Bowls, feeling close. Clearly, he feels like he could have won. Of course he could have. We think that too. 2 Super Bowls. And so it's probably
it feels like he thinks he was a little closer in Atlanta, he had a huge lead, and it was a little on him the way he called the plays. He was playing an elite team in the Chiefs. It wasn't as crazy, John, looking back. They had a 10-point lead.
You know when you're comfortable in a situation, whether or not it has led to wins or losses, whatever the case. Like, sometimes you can lie to yourself, but you know when you're pushing the right buttons, and the evidence sometimes matches it up. Sometimes the evidence doesn't match up with what you think, but you know. And then the other thing is, like, think about who he's talking to. He's talking to Mike Shanahan. He's talking to John Lynch. He's talking to Sean McVay. He's talking to Robert Saleh. And they're all reinforcing that, yes, you're one of the best at doing this. So, I mean, he's just a very confident guy. Yeah. And I think part of it is, I go back to, he's just been in that world for so long. He's been an insider in that world for a really long time.
Well, like, when
so
you
that's
watch
why he believes, Mac Jones, just the point on that, like, yes, I still go back to it. I think part of why he was kind of pissed off in that Monday press conference before the draft was, even if he wasn't going to draft Mac, like, you guys are talking about him like he's a clown, and he's not a clown. And when I don't draft him, that's not evidence that Mac Jones is a clown. It's just evidence that I like Trey Lance. But don't make it into like, all right, Kyle, pat you on the back. That's right. You thought he was trash just like I did. He's like, no, I'm going to separate myself just because I'm not drafting him. There's a line between me and the guys that think he's trash, because that's not me.
That clearly pisses him off. I mean, that's something that now we'll see how the tune changes if he's not any good in New England. And he'd be like, well, I'm not coaching him.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Right.
But I do get when coaches, like anyone in an industry that has to answer to the quote unquote the press, thinks like, you guys are asking me questions that I don't think you need to know, or that I don't think I need to defend to you, right? If Jed wants to ask me this question, if Guido walks in here and be like, hey, Bud Light's giving us $200 million, the CEO just has a question for you, like, you don't know, Jed needs you to do this. But like, to the press, I do understand where the confrontations happen, right? It just, I think there's sometimes that guy. And this one, it was different than just a one-on-one with like an old school journal, right? It was the overwhelming and we led the charge as well, the conversation. Like, this is fucking nuts. It was universal.
Yeah, and I think we don't even have to generalize it, right? We can talk really specifically about Kirk, because I think a lot of it comes from that. It's like, Kyle, I mean, explain yourself on Kirk Cousins. And he's like, you mean the guy that just threw 35 touchdowns, 4,200 yards? Why do I have to explain myself?
The guy that beat Drew Brees in the Superdome 2 years ago, when there were fans. It wasn't empty. There were fans in there. Remember that?
Why do I have to explain myself?
And then we had to play them in the second round because they were in the second round of the playoffs. Like, I do think, wouldn't you say this? And I've come around on Cousins. And maybe just some players take longer, right? Like Josh Allen, immediately pretty damn good. 3 years. Mahomes right off the bat. Some guys just, if they're not as fit, might take them a little bit longer to mature in their game. Well, I think Kyle, if you just ask the random guy that follows football about Kirk Cousins, if we did a grading scale like 1 to 10, the highest grade someone would give, the highest would be like a 7. But it feels like most people would give him like 5s and 6s. I think Kyle would look at him like, you guys are idiots. Like CJ
better
Beathard's
than
like
90% of the people that have ever played the position for more than 2 years.
Yeah. So I think that
Maybe
type
more.
of stuff pisses him off. And that was, think about that. That was his guy who has gone on to make $150 million and is clearly way better than anyone ever thought.
And like you said,
that player specifically has been, I would say, one of the more polarizing players of like the second half of the last decade, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because he's just, every year his contract has been up, and every year the number's been huge. And it's just, so every year it's like, well, is he worth it or is he not? And it's not some 3 years from now hypothetical.
I guess, yeah, you become polarizing when you make a lot of money and you're not viewed as like an elite guy.
And it's just a franchise deal. It's like, wait, they're going to pay him how much this year? The franchise tag, right? I think
and it got really contentious. It was like, well, you already paid me the franchise tag. I'm not. In fairness to him, like he was turning down extensions and he was proven right.
Then you like that kind of, that was, yeah, no, he was proven right.
You like that?
He was proven right. But I think Kyle told us, we kind of guessed it. Kyle told us what his quarterback order was in that interview. So
I think, is it fair to say the order was really just 2 guys? And I was wrong on this. The information. I wonder if they never would have made that trade for Justin Fields. And it turns out
I don't think they would have. I said that
they wouldn't have had to, guy.
After the draft, I said I don't think they considered him, from what I'd heard. And you're right, they wouldn't have had to. So that would have been bad. They wouldn't have had to for Mac either. Both would have been bad. We wouldn't have necessarily known it, right? It would have been easy if they had drafted Fields to be like, yeah, he wouldn't have been there at 12. That's what we all would have said if they had drafted him. Like, he wouldn't have been there at 12 probably anyway. But
Lance, I think it's fair to say, without having the information, because we'll never know, under no circumstances would have been there at 12.
Agreed.
The other 2 guys literally were.
Totally agree.
One guy went at 12, the other guy went 15.
No arguing. There's no debate on that, which is kind of makes it fun, I guess, in some ways. John, before we go any further, let's tell the people about our friends. Wait, it made too big on the YouTube. Our friends at Decked. Decked.com/ham. I've actually gotten some DMs from a few people when they check out the website and they're like, holy smokes, this stuff is sick. If you want a truck, you know what it's like having to stuff your stuff rattling around in the cab or the seat, what a pain it can be to keep it organized, protected from the elements, safe. Not only that, but everything you put back there is exposed and unsecured. Decked makes organizing, accessing, protecting, and securing everything you need so much easier. Right now, go to decked.com/ham to check out the Decked drawer system.
I feel like your baseball coach at San Jose State, I bet he drives a truck. And if he drives a truck, he should go get decked right now.
Should.
Because if you're driving a truck
for all
and you
the
don't
Eastons,
have decks,
for all the black magics.
Yeah, you just never know. Just some extra gloves in there. Maybe just you're tailgating after a big win, throw it, some Modelo's. You got options, guy. Some extra pants. If some of your players are not paying attention, they forget their pants or their shoes. It's like the equipment staff could use the truck as well. The deck drawer system keeps your gear secure. It's out of sight and out of mind. If your tailgate is locked, you can't even open the drawers. Think about that. So no one can break into your stuff. Deck also offers a full line of segmented storage, organizational accessories like various toolboxes, bags, cargo tie downs, and other handy items. The deck drawer system is a 100% made in America. Gotta love America. 3-year, no hassle warranty. But as they've told us, they've never turned anyone down. Never, guy.
We had a good talk with the people at Decked. The full length drawers can carry up to 200 pounds inside of whatever you got. And then there's a 2,000-pound payload capacity on the load floor, which means you can roll your, ATV up on top of it. And we also heard that there are a lot of people who you kind of, what's it called? Like you modify it, retro mod, whatever, modify. And you put retrofit it. Yeah, you put, ice and you tailgate with that bad boy. Over 7,000 reviews, a 4.89 rating. Fits every size truck and cargo van made since the mid-'90s and every mid-size truck since around 2005. So they got something for everybody. Free shipping when you go to decked.com. That's DECKED, decked.com/ham.
Deck.com/ham. Go do it.
Yeah, buddy. All right.
Did you know? Maybe I did have read this before. The Mets just took the other dude on
Kumar
the.
Rocker, yeah.
His dad is the defensive line coach for the
Yeah.
Eagles.
Yeah. I know. We've talked about him. I thought we talked about him. They showed him during
We
the
talked about
College
the
World Series.
kid. I didn't know the D line. Maybe we did mention that. He's a big motherfucker, isn't he?
Yeah, I think his dad did he play in the NFL?
Played at Auburn or something.
Played at Auburn, that's right. Might have coached
Yeah.
at
Oh,
Tennessee
yeah.
at
We
one
you're
point in
right. We
time.
did. We did.
Tracy Rocker. Yeah.
Tracy Rocker.
Did they just show him?
I just saw on Twitter that some of the guys that follow for the Eagles were like pumping their, fired up.
Incredible value for the 10th overall pick. One thing I had heard a couple days ago was like some people thought just the game in the College World Series, he got knocked around a little bit. Might have knocked him down a few spots. But his dad won the Outland Trophy.
As the best defensive line coach in college?
No, when he was a player at Auburn.
That's what I'm saying. As the best defensive line player.
Yeah. And he won the Lombardi Award.
You just see, like, because I'm watching the Conor fight last night, and it hit me, not that I didn't already know this, like, in the history of fighting, most people that have become great fighters, obviously boxing forever, and now UFC's been around, I mean, really the last, like, 20 years, they did not grow up with any money. And most people, like, respond to the tweet, like, yeah, there was a couple names, but for the most part, and someone tweeted at me, like, isn't that true for most pro sports? I'm like, no, I think you can find a lot of former big leaguers or, NFL players or NBA players, kids who have a lot of success. Absolutely. Now, it's different getting hit in the mouth and being a great pitcher or being a great shooter or being a great golfer or tennis player or whatever. But it is pretty impressive that a lot of these guys, but also, like, they do hit the genetic lottery. Like, me and you have children. Our kids are just not going to look like Kumar Rocker, right? They're just not going to be as good. And you'll know immediately, like in Little League. Can you imagine? I'd be shocked if Kumar Rocker wasn't the best player by the time he was in like 6th grade on his Little League team, right? Al Leiter's kid, Steph Curry, Peyton Manning, like these guys, you just get the genetics are just better when it comes to athleticism, right? Just like if you ever meet like a super educated family, usually they're children. But my take on that's always been they force like your kids to read and stuff more than like you're just born smart. Like I see my little brother's kid, like kids are all kind of the same, like 1.5 for the most part, right? Some are bigger or smaller than the other, but they're all just moving around, kind of making some sounds. I think you can kind of create now, some people have more capacity to learn, but like you can hammer home stuff with intelligence that like you can't teach kids to be 6'4".
Yeah. How about the spelling bee champ, John, who also was like a Guinness Book of World Records dribbler? You see that? She has like 3 dribbling records, and she won the spelling bee.
Isn't she really good just basketball player?
Yeah,
like I saw her in like 6th grade.
Basketball player from what I've seen.
Yeah, some people are just more talented than others.
Great name too, avant-garde. Couple other things from the I guess that was one thing that was a big. Kyle Shanahan throwing from a rooftop was a big thing. The Julio Jones clearly.
Do you think if you had to guess, I don't know how that whole thing happened. Did Joe Staley invite him to a 4th of July party? Does he invite Joe Staley to a 4th of July party? Do they both just end up in the same area and text each other? How does that happen?
I got my first guess was like Kyle was at like a house nearby. Joe invites him over. That's just how I perceived it. That may be totally wrong, but that's how I perceived it.
At Del Mar, so they're both in San Diego. Yeah, I would imagine something like that goes down. Maybe they both own houses down there.
Kyle like tells his family, "I'll be back in 30. I'm just gonna go see Joe."
Wouldn't like totally. Yeah, I could see something like that. Like, come on, hey, Joe's over. Come over with me and my buddies.
Kyle, where are you?
You start thinking like it's not like Joe's 28, like he's like 37. I mean, he's closer to Kyle's age than most people. Like they're actually pretty similar. Like, he's older than Sean McVay. I mean, would you imagine that Joe Staley and Kyle text a lot?
Yeah, because it's easy.
I bet they got along.
Kyle probably like in a way that Kyle can't necessarily text with his own current players, right?
Did me and you were we interviewing Joe individually, or was in a scrum like Kyle's first or second year? When he's like,
he was in a scrum. I think
that's what it was.
We talked to somebody else individually that day, Eric Armstead maybe or something like that. No, not
Armstead. It was DeForest.
Yeah, it was DeForest. But Joe, because I remember somebody asked him like something about Harbaugh, and he was like, it's different around here now. He was kind of happy, right? Was that the Tom
But I also remember it was like a year in, so they had been really shitty. It was like going into their second year. And the way he talked about Kyle was like, I'm telling you, this guy's pretty special. And it was, Joe was not one to just throw shit around and act like, it's perfect. And it was like, damn, did he just say what I think he said?
Yeah.
Like he clearly gravitated toward Kyle. And I bet they have similar personalities and Well, maybe not. I guess Joe's probably a little different personality than Kyle, but it definitely looked like they were both at Red Solo Cup parties, and he just migrated to either Joe came to him or he went to him.
Don't
right?
forget, like they probably have a similar style of football, but at his heart, Joe Staley's a skill position guy, right? Like Joe Staley, like he wants to run out there with Alex, and he wants to catch passes, and he was a tight end. And
well, do you know what Joe Staley was made for? I mean, put on this earth to do? Run the zone scheme. A great athlete who can move. What is Joe Staley's greatest play in the history of the Niners? Running in the open field, fucking knocking the Saints out in the middle. And how many players could do that? Trent Williams. Like most tackles can't move like that. I bet he thinks if I would have had Kyle Shanahan or Papa Shanahan the majority of my career, I would have been like a Hall of Famer. I'm Lane Johnson. That's what Joe Staley thinks. I was Lane Johnson. But I was so good. I played in Harbaugh's power scheme. I kicked ass.
Yeah.
I'm just drinking.
I'm with you. He probably wishes he was 5 years younger.
Hell yeah.
He didn't win a lot. I mean, he was a great player, right? But
he did get lucky though that he had a lot of shitty years, but he had 4 incredible years, right? Yeah. 2 Super Bowl years and those other 2 with Harbaugh where they were a powerhouse.
Yep.
So it's like it was shitty, but you made a lot of money. And to me, you got to go to 2 Super Bowls, right? That's a lot of guys cannot say that.
No, high highs. And it made him it didn't change who he was as a player, but it elevated his status in like now the history of Niner greats.
But just think about how many like really, really good players like DeAndre Hopkins or Keenan Allen or I mean we could go around to different positions. It's just easy to think. Joe Thomas never even made the playoffs. But even like a DeAndre Hopkins, like more than likely DeAndre Hopkins maybe has gone to his last playoff game with the Texans. You know, think about that. Keenan Allen. When's the last time that guy's been in the playoffs? He's thinking like, shit, I'm one of the best players in the league.
Yeah.
We win 5 games.
I know. One other thing from this year. There was actually several other things, but we'll move on to some other topics, I guess. I loved, you remember when anybody tweeted like, would Shanahan draft Kyle Pitts? It was like, shut up with that stupid take. Did McVay actually believe Kyle would take it? Or was he just kind of afraid that he would?
It's hard to tell. Because they admitted when they made the trade, like, yeah, guys, we're taking a quarterback. Like they were open with that.
My read on that is he probably just seen him, and he didn't really have a great take on Trey Lance. He even kind of said that. Like, I didn't have a great take on Trey Lance and McVay. But he had just seen Pitts and knew, not from a draft value standpoint, just knew if he was on the 49ers, he probably thought, like, how am I going to defend Pitts and Kittle? Like, how would I do? What would I do? I think you're just afraid until the guy doesn't. I think you're just afraid. You have to kind of consider everything, right?
Well, I think Pitts was the guy this year. If you read like I almost said Ron Wolf article, but Bob McGinn article.
Yeah.
If you read like the articles from the scouts, some years there aren't necessarily that guy, but this year, like, who's the one guy that could be a Hall of Famer? Like everyone was like Kyle Pitts. Because I remember watching a couple games just like during Corona when I had the bike in the office and I would just ride the bike sometimes on Saturday. All the gyms were closed. And Florida, for whatever reason, played a lot on that 9 a.m. kickoff. That motherfucker, every game, was doing incredible things. He's 6'5". He can run like a deer. His hands are incredible. I mean, he was pretty awesome. And it turns out their team was really good, and they had a quarterback get drafted in the second round, a wide receiver get drafted at pick 20. But you could not. I don't think that was ever a discussion.
No, I would think not. No. Any other takeaways from Flying Coach? I mean, just these two guys being in the same division is pretty cool because there are a lot of similarities. We talk about the similarities of their offensive style, but I think just the individual people, who they look for, what kind of players they like, the kind of style they want to play. Outside, I'm not talking X's and O's, but just their kind of philosophies about physicality. It has the potential, if they can both be in their individual places for the next 15 years, who knows, to be a pretty great rivalry.
I think one thing that sucks is like when you get a guy who becomes your guy, ideally you'd like him in another division because then you really don't, and ideally in a different conference because then you can be just truly his friend.
You mean from the standpoint of them? Yeah.
Yeah. As a human being, when he's in your division, it becomes, I would say, pretty adversarial during the season. Like that guy is a legit rival. Like you're thinking about his team, where he is in the standings 24/7, 365. Like even like John Harbaugh's Andy's guy. Like, are the Ravens and Chiefs rivals? Kind of. I mean, not really. But, I mean, they easily could play in a playoff game, and it would be very serious. But he doesn't have to think about the Ravens 24/7. But if he was like Gruden and Andy, do Gruden and Andy feel like the buddies they were when – remember when Andy would go into the bus a lot on Monday Night Football? It was like, these guys are boys. Now it's like, I don't think they're boys anymore.
When you're just the TV guy, yeah.
But it just kind of ends. If I told you John Gruden was the coach of the Niners, it feel like their relationship would still be probably a little more normal. It does not feel like that at all. I just think it. Now, I'm not saying that Kyle and McVay had that same. They hadn't known each other as long, but it does feel like they don't really talk that much. Even they kind of mentioned it. We talk a little bit at the combine, but we can't really.
Yeah,
it's part of the business. That kind of sucks.
Yeah, because there's only so many people that speak your language, understand your pressure.
Well, like if Kyle wants to talk to either of the LaFleurs that he knows really well, it's pretty easy to talk to the LaFleur with the Jets, right? He can text him whenever. Like, why does it even matter? But are you going to be like, especially once Rodgers, which is pretty clear inevitably is just going to be there day one now, like what a divorce that never happened. You can't, like, the Packers aren't just going to be feeding, like, remember when Kyle called him, he's like, bro, what are you talking about? About the Rodgers trade thing before the draft?
Because they hadn't been texting in the last 4 days, just keeping up on stuff, right?
Well, and what
that was my impression is that they hadn't been in touch for a while, first of all. And now, to your point.
Yeah, well, 100%, Kyle. If the guy demands us trade him, and the last team in the world will trade him to you. So good luck.
That's the other thing. It's not like one of them's about to retire. They feel like anything I say to this guy, he could use against anything he knows about me, he could use against me for the next 30 games that we play each other.
I do think you kind of become isolated as a head coach sometimes.
Well, yeah, because you absolutely do. Because McVay was shocked when Schrager was like, this is the one everyone's been waiting for. And McVay's like, really? They've all been waiting for Shanahan? Not like to denigrate Kyle. I don't think he quite realizes how much bigger the Niners are right now than, just talking about Zach Taylor or even LaFleur or Robert Saleh, which they're all great interviews. But McVay does not have a handle on the size of the Niners brand right now relative to most teams in the league, which is fine. It's not. What does he care?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
It's not his job. He's not in the marketing department. He's in the football coaching department. But I think one thing that would really take it, if these two teams, if you ask me,
game.
Yeah, what do I want out of the next year or two? I want Rams-Niners in the playoffs because that would be like that's got the potential.
Rams-Niners or Rams-Bucks playoff game this year? You had to sign up for one.
Yeah, I mean Rams-Niners for me.
Over Niners Brady?
Oh, did you say? I thought you said Rams-Bucks.
Sorry. Niners-Rams.
Yeah,
Niners,
I mean
Bucks.
You'd have to take that game.
Yeah, you're like, the Rams ain't going anywhere. You'd have Tom's 44.
You'd have Montana there in like a Bucks hat. You'd be like, why is Joe wearing a Bucks hat?
You had I was at the airport. I don't have that much sound beside the highlights. Does Aaron come off way cockier than Tom?
Oh yeah.
Or was he kind of normal in that? Yeah. He's much more
not
like
because of what he says, just because
this is body language.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Tom appears to me more comfortable just being kind of vulnerable.
Yeah.
When Tom hits a shitty shot, he's embarrassed. But he's putting himself out there. Aaron
hit some great shots.
The shot Aaron hit from like the hazard area with the ball way below his feet in like some rough, and he didn't quite get it all the way there. I think it came up short. Maybe it was in the sand, but it was to hit the ball straight was just incredible. But yeah, they're just different. Like I think Brady at his core is an includer, just bringing everybody in. And I think Aaron, to me, kind of is content being alone. I'm not saying he doesn't want to be around teammates, but I'm just saying I think they just have different personalities.
Yeah.
And I don't think it means Tom's any less confident, but yeah, they're different.
I think Tom. My take is like Tom's just in a weird way kind of a more normal guy at his core.
Yeah.
I think he's more relatable, just like with an average person. And I'm not. Some people are just different. And Aaron's clearly. I actually think he's getting a little more different as he's getting older, because it felt like Tom was like. Remember 4 or 5 years ago with all the stuff? Like, is he jumping the shark? He's actually done a pretty good job of like, I just do my own shit. It works for me. I'm kicking ass. everyone now is like, well, it works, right?
I would say Aaron's more guarded. Maybe that's the.
Were they messing with him a lot with the thing?
Well, yeah, they not a lot. They went through. Everybody asked him a question. All right, Charles did the classic. All right, Aaron, just you and me talking. What are you gonna do? And someone had a great comment. I don't remember who, but they're like, Aaron's like every other guy on the golf course, just doesn't want to talk about his day job.
A lot of we'll sees for So he's kind of admitted like nothing's happening, right?
You're right. I mean, I guess he could have used the platform to be like, I tried to tell him I want out, but that's not really his style.
I mean, Phil carried the broadcast.
Phil, you have to have Phil. Yeah. Because Phil can mess with you. Phil is just, when Phil's messing with you, he just has really quick, he's quick. So he can slide something in without needing 4 minutes to build up his punchline. Like, Bryson came out with some duct tape for Brady on the first tee in case he tore his pants.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
I do think Tom has the world figured out. He wins Super Bowl after Super Bowl. He just moved to Florida, no state income tax, won a Super Bowl with a franchise that was a joke. Brought his buddy with him, really his buddies. He brought AB too. He has a house in Montana that I think the average person would be like, why would he go to Montana? And then you see it on TV, you're like, this place is fucking beautiful. You're like, this is like Tahoe on steroids with this unreal golf course. Like, oh my God. And then you look how much it costs. Like, yeah, the elite guys all go there, but it's like, that's pretty, that's his place, right? That course, like where he kicks it. Like those other guys don't go there. Like Phil doesn't hang out there.
Aaron, I guess, had gone like a few weeks ago or last month with some buddies and played.
He'd been there before, but that's
just recently.
Tom has notoriously been. Remember, he brought like Julian back in the day, those guys to train. Like that's where he hangs out in the summer. Like Tom's got the world by the balls. That's my takeaway from just seeing the visuals of the Montana.
I think what's cool about him is he's managed to get to this place where he kind of acts like he's retired, but he's not. He's kind of loosened up in a way that you think you do after you retire, but he's not retired. He's still competing. He's still winning championships.
Yeah, and maybe like Peyton is a special personality too, but there is like, and I'm a Peyton guy. I do think sometimes not that he's acting, but he's just kind of playing a character sometimes. Where Tom just kind of, like you said it perfectly. He's very at peace and very vulnerable, but he's just very cool with where he's at.
Yeah. Yeah. He is. Yeah.
I actually think Phil is too right now.
Well, Phil, absolutely. A couple times they're like, Phil, now remind us who currently holds the trophy for the PGA Championship. Phil was great.
He hits. I honestly think he could win another major.
Bombs.
Major bombs.
A couple other things. What else do you want to hit? Other stuff that's been going on.
Well, Cal Poly legend. When we were in college, and I don't know if it was like this at Fresno, but in Cal Poly, because the guy lived there, was a Cal Poly student, was really our most famous athlete probably ever, Chuck Liddell. He was such a big deal, and he was so cool. Like everyone, when he fought Tito or Rampage, anyone he fought, everyone in town got his pay-per-views. Like it wouldn't have been if I would have been at USC or something. Who knows? Not that I would have gotten into USC, but you know what I'm saying. Like He was an enormous deal at Cal Poly. He's cool. Like I'm a big Chuck Liddell guy, and he was sitting with Baker Mayfield. Like I just that to me was like Chuck Liddell's hanging out with Baker Mayfield. Now, is there a chance that a bunch of elite people you end up just sitting around other elite people? Like Baker was with other teammates, but Baker's wife was on the other side of Chuck. Like I don't know. And someone DM'd me like, clearly a Browns fan was like, Middlecoff, you just got to learn. Baker is that guy. Like when I think Chuck Liddell, I don't know. I could see like Chuck Liddell sitting next to Mahomes. Like Baker is Baker actually kind of cool and kind of sweet? I don't know.
Yeah, people like him. It could be.
You said he was on the match. He calls in like he's kind of riding this wave of just reinvigoration. I don't know.
I know he's if his level of his fame is massive, and he's not even he's a really good player. Obviously,
he did win a playoff game last year.
He had a
good year.
But if he becomes like a top 8 type quarterback, he clearly enjoys it, so he'll maximize it. Chuck was big in Fresno when I was going to school and even after because his management, a guy named Dwayne Zinkin Jr. is a Fresno guy. And so Chuck, was like a star.
Is that a Lorenzo Neal friend?
Absolutely. I would imagine. Yeah.
Well, because that guy's a wrestler. Lorenzo was a wrestler. He ran in that circle.
Fresno is legendary wrestling, high school and their college program, but definitely high school. So Chuck, I always feel like Chuck was around. I just hear stories that Chuck Liddell was around a lot in Fresno.
Chuck feels very middle of California.
Yeah.
Like Central California, Fresno Valley. Chuck's a badass.
Where was he sitting relative to Mark Davis? Mark and
Marcel Reese.
Marcel Reese.
Do you think it's a faux pas? Because I've had this thought sometimes, like, when Mark walked in with the shirt, they're clearly just right out of the bag.
Yeah.
It's 2021. Can they not develop a strategy where you just pull out of the bag and it's like doesn't have those lines and it's just ready to roll?
I could get a wrinkle-free shirt, maybe.
Yeah. Do you appreciate that move of just not even thinking about ironing it? He doesn't usually. That's dressed up for him. Like that's not his outfit.
I know. It's. I saw. I wondered. Like, did they have to get? Like, did something happen to the other shirt he was wearing, and they had to get him a quick shirt real quick, or did he just leave the house, new shirt for the fight, and he just threw it on and was like, I don't care. Because I would probably go the latter. You get the immediate like, oh, new shirt. Like, yeah, actually, how do you know?
Say this for Mark. This is where, obviously financially the move, he is a infinitely bigger deal there than he ever was here immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like Dana White, boom. He goes to everything that matters there. Not that I guess he couldn't have here, but it just wouldn't have been the same. Like the Giants are playing the Dodgers in the first round of the playoffs. Like he ain't sitting front row. I don't know where he was sitting. What?
Old Warrior? Like
yeah, he used to go to Warrior games. He was places, but it feels like he gets like it's a big deal when he shows up.
Yeah.
He's the owner of their football team.
Right. He does feel like he's got a higher VIP status.
That's my point. Yeah. In a VIP town.
Right. Yeah.
In a VIP town.
Is Marcel Reese working for the team in some official capacity, like team ambassador or something like that?
Yeah. I think we always said this about Seabass. When you were that shitty for that long, really their two best players over that time were their kicker and their fullback was a Pro Bowler for a couple of years. Would they have if you would have put them on the Steelers or the Packers? Like, is it the same? Because listen, Seabass was always cool. I was always like, I wouldn't say in awe of him, but always like, damn, that's Sebastian Janikowski when we were around him. I always really admired might be the wrong word, but just thought he was really cool. Yeah. Like I always appreciated. Yeah. I think he was a little overrated as a player, at least in our time watching him really closely. Yeah. He was missed a lot of kicks. Marcel was a pretty unique chess piece, but even by the time we were around a lot, I don't know if he was quite as good. But those guys, definitely Marcel, I guess Seabass probably made a lot of money from kicking. Marcel really capitalized on being the Raiders' famous player when they were really shitty and Mark took over. Yeah. And now he's
senior advisor to the owner and president.
This is a more smart move. He's like, wait, I could move to Vegas and just be a fucking right-hand guy? I'm there.
I would love to advise you at the UFC 185 or whichever one it was. Speaking of which, you ordered the fight?
I did,
on my ESPN Plus or on your ESPN
Well, I had your ESPN Plus on my iPad. I couldn't figure out how to do it on the TV. You had given me yours so I could watch the PGA Championship, I think.
Yeah.
And you just did the $5.99 thing. So I immediately buy the $5.99. I realized on yours.
It's the beauty. So it's only $5.99. Like,
yeah, you're good for a month. Then I go to mine. I get the $5.99 thing. And I'm trying to figure out how to buy the fight. I had FOMO and I'm not a big fight guy when it comes to UFC, but this felt pretty big. It just did for some reason for me.
Cuts through the noise. Like even if you're not a fight person, you're like Conor McGregor. Okay.
But I follow enough fight people and follow the fight game close. I think this other guy, Dustin Poirier, was like really, really highly thought of. Like he's viewed in that circle as like a elite champion, and he's beat Conor before. So I was like, I kind of want to watch this, and just you start hearing rumblings of like the people that are going to be there. Like I think this was a pretty big deal. Now the risky part with a fight, like here's the thing: I bought the fight 2 fights before. Like I don't need to watch. I ain't gonna watch the 7 fights leading up to it. Right. So I really just paid the $70 basically for the main event. Now the main event, any main event. When it's a huge thing like a Conor, a Tyson, a Pacquiao type, Floyd, the lead up of when the last fight ends to go to them and it gets dark is badass.
Yes, it is.
That's incredible. And the look on Conor and Dustin's face, like what they know's on the line, everyone's watching that. Like that is just the anticipation is unlike anything. To me, it's even more than a football game. because once you start playing or fighting, it just becomes a fight. But that lead up is like, God. And even Joe Rogan was like, I'm nervous. And Cormier, who does the thing too, was like, fuck, my juices are flowing. You could feel the tension in there. And then when they just start fighting, and it's a fight. But, the fight lasted 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I think one thing, I mean, I saw the highlight. Do you know how close the kick that actually like cracked his leg? And
well, Poirier thought that it happened like early on. That they kind of came out swinging and kicking at each other, and they're landing these kicks that, listen, I've watched enough like ninja YouTubes that you can callus that, your leg, which I'm sure these guys do. But even Dustin was like, we were kicking each other pretty hard. I think I cracked early on. And then when he went to, it's like if there's a nail in the tire and the nail goes out, the tire pops, right. Like he was like, it's not really, he didn't just step on his leg and the thing shattered. It was probably hanging by a thread. Like it was 80% cracked. I didn't know it was cracked, but it makes sense. And Conor, in his accent, Rogan sits down to interview him. It makes no sense. You can't even understand him. Called it bullshit. That's not what happened. But
I saw Russillo tweeting
I think that is what happened.
Conor made some good points. I was like, okay,
Guy,
his post interview
did you watch?
Incredible.
Did you watch his post interview?
No.
He made. I mean, you couldn't even understand him. Now I followed this fight pretty closely, at least the lead up. He had been saying some crazy things. I'm gonna kill you. He had DM'd his wife.
I'd heard his. Yeah, I watched one of those press conferences about yelling about the guy's wife.
It had gotten a little weird, and I think Poirier was really pissed. Like it was serious. Like he was pissed off about it, and Conor wouldn't let it go.
Well, they asked
it's hard
him
to
about
tell
the
sometimes. Like, is this fake or is it real? It did feel like Conor was in a weird place.
So that was their third fight, and I guess Poirier. Somebody asked him about the fourth fight. He's like, "Yeah, I'll fight him in the parking lot, or I'll fight him in the next wherever we're going to fight him again. Let's fight him again."
Well, Conor's Conor's screaming. The one thing you could understand, like, "I'll go fight him right now!" And he tries to get up. His ankle shattered. They have to hold him down. It's like, God, this is out of control.
I've been to one UFC event, like in 2011. It was in San Jose. I was in Fresno at the time, but I drove up with it for it. And it was amazing. Like I just remember walking out of there like that was a show. And
I would
go.
Yeah.
So I would go again. Somebody broke
it was
their leg.
packed at T-Mobile.
Shogun. I think it was some UFC person will tell me. It was like Hendo and Shogun Rua. I don't know. Somebody broke their leg saying like trying to do like a standing fucking I don't even know what type of kick. But it was a show. It was a show.
One thing I think you get in UFC that you do not get in boxing is like in boxing, you get knocked out or you get combos to the face. In UFC, you get in these positions where the dude is straddling them and you're like, inside, you're like, oh my, he's getting elbowed to the nose and the mouth. This is the pain. He's getting hammer shots to the forehead or to the cranium. The pain that they're inflicting. Boxers are nuts, right? These guys are on a completely different level. Conor, Poirier, Hardy got knocked out by this. I think he was a Samoan type. He's an American, but
big guy.
Well, Hardy's huge, and this guy was a little smaller, but this guy might have been 6'4". Hardy's like 6'8". This guy KO'd him. These guys are nuts, man. One beef I have, the guy that left ESPN, who's now with The Ringer. One big thing that happens in UFC a lot is like how the fighters are always getting screwed. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. It's a sport that's very, very top heavy, right? You don't have like a right guard in boxing. Like the guy fighting let's say I think there were 12 fights. The seventh fight, like the fifth fight in, so 7 fights till Conor, not a soul's paying for that fight. He is benefiting from everything. So to think like he's getting screwed is just not the case. Conor was the highest paid athlete in the world last year, made $180 million. I don't know how much Dustin made, but I'd imagine Dustin made some serious cash in the last several years being a champion. The high-end guys in UFC, now I don't know about the one pushback always in these things are the retirement plans, right, for injured guys in combat sports, which, listen, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about the compensation, the time up. The high-end guys make their money.
Yeah.
The littler guys, like, I'm sorry, they wouldn't generate a penny if it wasn't for the high-end guys going. And Dana, like, I'd argue that Joe Rogan, the guy announcing the fight, is infinitely more famous than everyone except, like, the 2 fighters. So it's like, the business model. The moment you leave the top fight, you divide that next fight by 100, by 500, right? In terms of their earning power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that is always a pushback from like the diehards. Whenever you're like, this is so shady of a business.
What are the guys in the first undercard making?
You're talking about like the first fight of the night at like 3:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, but on like a legit main event, right?
Yeah, I mean,
UFC.
I honestly, I couldn't even begin to like they fought last night at 9:00. It came on at 3:00, and they were showing fights at 3:00.
Yeah.
My guess would be $50,000, $100,000. I don't know. That's more money than 100% they could make anywhere else, and they should be honored to be on that card, right? It changes their life.
You're trying to move your way up the card. There's only one way to do it.
But it's not like I understand if you're a guard, you're like, I'm worth $7 million. You can't play without the guard. I can have Conor and Dustin happen without any of these fights before. I could have a concert. I could do whatever the fuck I want. I know the history is always like you got to lead up, which for sure it helps, but you don't necessarily need 13 fights. I could have 4, right? That is a huge pushback though in the UFC community that the fighters are getting screwed.
Right.
And I would imagine like it's debatable, but the tie-in guys are never getting screwed. Conor made $180 million.
I think anytime you have the prize as big as it is at the end, you can get people to do stuff for less money than some other people think it's worth doing. Because they're like, well, I'm sacrificing now because at the end of this rainbow potentially is a $50 million payday if I can get there.
But right? It's like, couldn't I make the argument that if I'm an undrafted free agent, I make the Niners or the Rams? And through injuries, by week 1, I'm your starting right tackle. We win the Super Bowl, I start every game at right tackle. You only had to pay me $600,000. The going rate for my position, I'm under contract, but the going rate for my position, if I'm a good player on a top team, is what? Minimum $12 million? Did I get screwed? Well, we never talk about that guy like getting screwed. He's under contract. Like, yeah, it's business is just, it's complicated.
We do with baseball a little bit, right? Because it takes you so long to get to the big leagues, and by the time you do, you got a 6-year contract, you got to wait to hit arbitration and blah, 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 blah. We do talk about it with baseball.
I just think it's a little overrated because in fighting, I would say in any individual sport, even tennis, the high-end guys carry the sport. And when I say the high-end guys, I'm talking like 3 or 4 people total. Like the sport, you take those guys away, like no one cares.
Well, I mean, the men's final, there was one star, Novak, and the other guy, Bertolini. It actually went 4, right?
Yeah,
4
he was
sets.
good. He's actually pretty good.
I mean, just Djokovic is an absolute dominant force. Him against anybody is Djokovic.
But I was thinking this today when I just flipped it on. When does the first or second seed never not make the finals in these big tournaments? Feels like they're minimum they're always there, if not both of them are there.
It's because again, very top heavy.
But so it's like,
and it's very hard. A tennis match is long. It's just hard to beat. You can't. It's just hard.
You can't luck into it. Yeah.
It's so hard. I think the nerves, especially. I think experience is such a big factor for a lot of these stars. They've been in these spots where you're talking to somebody else who's like, "Oh, I'm on center court for the first time." I mean, Novak's won 20 majors.
Well, did you notice that Kate Middleton was at that, and then she was at the Wembley?
Well, I guess it was pretty close, right?
It had to be because she changed.
I saw a map.
It was like, I swear to God, she was just there. Like, hey, what's the geography in this
Best
area?
sports day since Buck did the Giants and the Niners in the same day.
That had to be an enormous day in England, right?
Yeah, I saw somebody posted a photo of like the 2 stadiums, how close I don't know. You know, they were, I don't know relatively how close, but obviously close
Wimbledon
enough.
And Wembley.
Wimbledon.
Isn't where Wembley where they play a lot of the NFL games?
That is where they play. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I know you were locked in. It's big like on this Sunday. We did come back with a lot of events going on as we're watching. I watched the this was the UEFA Champions League?
No, it's Copa. Copa.
You sure?
It's Copa, yeah.
Anyway, I watched it.
I thought. No,
I don't think it's Copa.
Was Copa something different? Europeans?
Yeah, these are the Europeans. The European Championship. That's what they won.
Okay,
the Euros.
Yeah.
You were locked in on it. I was locked in. I actually went to a bar, Monahan's, with I've mentioned him before, big Italian soccer fan, Joe Gavazza, and his wife, Kristen. And there was a ton of English soccer fans, a ton of Italians there. It's sweet to watch, but, I'm like, I'm watching this thing. I think the same thing any soccer game I watch, which is just please don't be 2-0. Like, because if it ever gets to a 2-goal difference, I can't. It's just hard for me to stay. And then even the first 30 minutes, you and I were texting. Every soccer fan hates penalty kicks. It is by far and away my favorite. I feel like I've watched so many huge soccer events, World Cup. Penalty kicks come into play a ton. I mean, I get why they don't like it, but maybe it's, they hate putting a runner at second base.
Did you have audio? Like, could you hear the game?
Yeah.
One thing, Taylor Twellman.
Yeah, correct.
It sounded like him. Okay, probably about midway through, he's like, because England scored really early, right, within like 5 minutes of the game.
2 minutes, fastest.
2 minutes. He's like, then they kind of went, whatever they call it in soccer, like the four corners. They just played defensive. They're just trying to get to win the game 1-0. It's like, can you imagine in any other sport, baseball, you just score a run in the first inning, or you score a touchdown first drive of the game 7-0. You're just like, we're just gonna play defense, we're gonna win this thing 7-0. And now, in fairness, that's not how those sports are played. You would never think like that. In soccer, you do. It can be tough to watch. There's nothing more exciting, right, than when sometimes it feels like they're offsides, but like when a guy kind of gets a breakaway or a guy down the side, you're like, he's got a lane, like, shoot it. And then he fucks up. You're like, oh my God, we're not going to see that again for 20 minutes.
I know.
That happened a couple times with England. I'm like, oh my God. And then nothing happens. It's like, this sucks.
I did. Somebody, apparently a lot of the Irish are also rooting for the Italians. There was this Irish guy there who said that he's like, no, it's good that England scored first because now it's going to force the Italians to play a certain way that they don't.
And they were aggressive.
And it makes them get more aggressive. I don't know. All I know is I love PKs. I get why they feel it's a little unfair. Not unfair, but just kind of, cheap. I think it's unbelievable. Like, to me, how do you think about the drama of PKs? I think it's nerve-wracking. Do you get any drama like penalty kicks and anything else? It's just mano-a-mano, one-on-one. There's pressure on the kicker because it's like you should score.
Yeah, to me, the problem, though, is it's not a realistic part of the game.
Well, I know.
You are never in that situation in the middle of a soccer field, the pitch, as they call it, where it's just you and the goalie. Most goals happen where it's close, but they don't get free shots. It's like, God damn, the header. To me, imagine like this week, the British Open. I think in the Open they do the 4 holes. Like, they don't do a sudden death. You get automatic 4 holes, and it's like the aggregate score. But if it was like, we're just going to go to the 18th hole, we're going to put tees in 4 different spots, we're going to have a putting contest. Or in baseball, it's like, who can throw the ball the farthest from home plate? Or just, it is a little...
Penalty kicks are an actual part of the game. I think that happened during the game.
Rarely, that is true. But I can see, it's just part, ever since I've been watching soccer, it does, to me, feel a little hollow. Like, that's the way you're going to lose. Now, in fairness, it felt like it was never going to end.
I know. That's the other thing. It's like golf. How long do you really play if you just play an endless playoff?
Like, you notice the one dude for Italy, the defenseman, he looked like 60 years old.
The really tall guy with the receding hairline?
God,
I couldn't believe it.
How old is that guy?
It's a young man's sport.
He had an incredible save when the one dude had like a little breakaway on the side. The collar play where he threw the guy down. You tweeted it. How's it not a red card?
I don't know anything about soccer, but I can't believe you get away with that. People told me when he got horse collared, like, if he had really had a chance to score in that situation, it's probably a red card. But he didn't like prevent a scoring opportunity, which I don't know. I mean, looked like he got it broken away to me. But
did you know that we lost in basketball to Nigeria yesterday?
I did know that. Yes, only because I saw Gottlieb. Was it Gottlieb tweeted something about it last night. I had seen the game on TV. I kind of flipped over to it. And cause they had a few guys. They had like Casey Okpala from Stanford and Ika Rebu from Washington State. Like, I recognized a bunch of these names. Prince.
We had Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, and Dame Lillard and Draymond Green.
So it's
an embarrassing loss.
And it was, they're up. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I didn't go back and watch any of it. Did you watch
I didn't watch a second, but
was it close at the end?
Yeah, I mean 90-87. Mike Brown's the coach for Nigeria.
What does any of it matter?
Well, it doesn't, but it's...
Light a fire under him, John. It's good to lose right before the Olympics.
But to me, when you're... you should not lose that game. I'm sure that's the most embarrassing loss in the history of USA basketball.
I did watch it, but it didn't mean anything. I did watch it and think, oh my God, like I just watched Kevin Durant play a full season. I just watched all these guys play. Like, that was my impression watching the game. It's like, how are these guys even locked in right now? Because, I think...
Clearly they weren't.
Yeah, first of all, I think the Olympics to basketball players... I'm not going to say it means less than it ever has, but it doesn't mean what it did to the Dream Team.
Yeah,
right?
No, it doesn't.
And then on top of that, this is not – you've coming out of like a really bizarre year. And on top of that, this is an exhibition game, right? Or something. I don't even know what.
Yeah, to me, the Olympics mean everything. The summer ones, right, to the gymnasts and the swimmers. Someone tweeted on my timeline, Biles, like they must be having the prelims or whatever.
Yeah.
I swear to God, she was in the air like 17 million feet. And now they have clearly have springs
Right.
on the floor mat. She must have done, I don't know, 18 flips in just the one spring. It was great. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Someone's like, how's this even humanly possible? Like, that's where I do feel good.
She's in her prime. Like, she is.
Yeah, my
height of
I feel
powers.
like I feel like Greg Popovich has mailed in his career since Kawhi Leonard told him to kiss his ass. And Steve Kerr clearly doesn't even care about winning. He said it last year, we're not chasing wins. So I'm not totally like, they make me a little nervous that those two. Not that they're not prideful. Obviously, Pop was, in the military. I don't know.
Fine. Like, them having a chance to lose is by far the most interesting thing that could happen in the basketball
I do
side.
take a lot of pride in knowing, like, to the swimmers, to our track athletes, and to some, Biles and the rest of the gym, like, this is their Super Bowl.
Of course, if you said Durant, you can win the gold medal or you can win an NBA championship, what would he pick?
Yeah, he wishes he was playing right now.
He'd pick the championship.
But I like my guys to care about whatever they're in.
Yeah, well, I agree. I'm just saying, like, it's hard to have anybody care about anything as much as an athlete who only can compete once every 4 years. And this one's 5 years after they were supposed to compete.
That's true. So now we back.
Your body clock is like, how old is Simone Biles? Like, 24? Yeah.
She's ready to roll.
The swimmers, though, I'm with you, though. So I would say swimming is probably my favorite. Like, when it's like, this is the big dogs racing in this particular event.
Yeah.
And track and field, is another one.
Did they let the girl in that smoked the weed?
She was out. I don't know if she's back in or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if she made it back in.
I didn't get the impression she was back in.
No, she just wanted to. Do you think the NBA players are like, wait, guys, they test for weed?
I saw somebody say, all the NBA guys are out.
They ain't testing those guys.
When does Hard Knocks start? Did you see that while we were gone? Cowboys, Hard Knocks.
Did you like? I like that. I mean,
if you would add, I think there were only 5 teams that could have had it, and it was like Denver, Arizona, Dallas. There weren't that many teams that like fit in the category.
Because it's no playoffs and no new coach, right?
And you haven't been on the last 10 years.
Oh, damn. I didn't. Okay, so that changes it.
Yeah. I was thinking about, like, I think Arizona might have been my pick just because I don't really see Kyler. Like, I want to see Kyler and Cliff interact. Like, I know what Dak's about. You know what I mean? I know what McCarthy's about. Even Jerry, who entertains me, I know what he's about. The number one thing on the groups of teams they had, to me, would have, I think maybe Carolina was one of the options. Kyler. I would have loved to have seen, like, Kyler.
Carolina wouldn't have been terrible. Matt Rule, I know nothing about, really.
Carolina wouldn't have been bad. Excellent storyline on just, like, is Darnold going to put this thing together? But, yeah, I can't complain about the Cowboys.
It'll be big. You're right, though. Like, Dak is pretty boring, and McCarthy is just kind of meatheady.
Now, a lot of there was an all or nothing on Dallas that I watched that was interesting because there was a lot of Jerry's all over it. But at the end of the day, like, I'm just.
But it was
curious.
like, what was Jerry going to say that you haven't heard? I mean, Jerry talks a lot.
Yeah, I was very curious about Kyler, but whatever. Doesn't matter. It's fine. I'll watch it. It's interesting. Maybe Jerry says something about a player that somebody else wouldn't say. I don't know.
I guess that is a possibility for sure. Tough spot. I mean, honestly, if I'm Mike McCarthy, like, did we really have to be on fucking Hard Knocks?
No, I'm with you. I saw Cowherd's take was like, do we need another distraction here? Now, is Hard Knocks in 2021 the distraction it was in 2011?
But still, everywhere you got a camera following you around.
You got to do some interviews. You got to have, it's not nothing.
Hey guys, agree. I mean, it's kind of playoffs or bust for the guy. Their team's loaded. They got an expensive roster.
There's no kind of about it. It's playoffs or bust or more.
Honestly, I think it adds a lot of pressure to him.
Not exactly.
Especially like there's pressure on him.
Like even just not beating the wild card team would feel like a major letdown, even if they made the playoffs. They didn't win.
To me, there's pressure on him just to not look like an idiot. Like, what does he look like?
And Dak doesn't just have to be good. Like Dak just got paid. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Ohtani Monday night, John. Ohtani becomes a bigger star every day. It feels like so.
Home run derby.
Home run derby.
Do you know who else is in it?
Joey Gallo, Matt Olson, Yonder Alonso. That's 4. I think there's 8 total people in it.
That's pretty good. I mean, Harper, Stanton.
Yeah, it's not. It's Ohtani. I mean, you're gonna need, if you're gonna keep watching it, Trevor Story, Trey Mancini, Salvador Perez, Juan Soto.
Yes.
I'll tell you this. I don't love a first round matchup, Ohtani and Soto.
Oh yeah, they match him up kind of like
I don't love that.
NCAA tournament style.
How is Juan Soto the 8th seed? I mean, I guess it's probably based on production this year, but holy smokes, that guy.
One thing that is cool, it's in Denver. Ball's gonna fly.
Yeah, it's going to be like the match.
Yeah, ball's
They're
gonna
hitting
fly.
the ball 380 on the fly.
A couple times I watched though, Bryson clearly tried to hit it as far as humanly possible and like rocked it into the trees.
Yeah, he hit one that I thought he actually hit. I was like, did he hit that low?
I think he was pretty amped up for trying to hit like outrageously far. I felt like Phil was much more accurate on his drives than Bryson.
How about oh yeah, he was. How about just like Trout, all-time greatest player, blah 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 blah. The baseball doesn't do it. Ohtani just rolls in and becomes a superstar playing on the same team.
Yeah,
Part of it, his swing is sweet. Part of it is he's a pitcher. I mean, he's just kind of crazy.
he's way cooler than Trout.
Yeah,
Trout's
right.
Not that cool.
I mean, it's just he doesn't. It's not like he gives a bunch of pregame interviews that anybody hears.
Well, the one thing that kind of sucks, he's going on this historic run, and Mike's been hurt, right? Wouldn't it be pretty cool if Mike was healthy and the two of them were just kicking everyone's ass?
Be awesome.
I mean, is he ever coming back, or is he just taking the season off? I keep looking at the standings. Like, could the Angels make the playoffs? They're pretty far out of it. It's pretty hard.
They need to expand the playoffs for the Angels.
Yeah.
I know, but
Okay, I'm starving, guy.
all right. Welcome back, everybody. Great to be back. We appreciate it. Good to see everybody. Later.
Adios.